Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or as we like to say here at Shady Acres Woodshop, howdy. Today I have a piece of oak. This comes to us from our friend Gary at the Papa, 1947. Gary sent this to me a couple of months ago. You can see there he marked it at 10% moisture content. I'll tell you what, the piece is heavy. It's very heavy, but that's just oak being oak. I'm pretty sure this is white oak. Gary didn't say, but it doesn't look like red oak. Might be some other kind of oak. The bark on this is nice and tight all the way around, so I think it's going to stick with us for our live edge piece. This piece is just about square at 8.5 by 9, and it's about 4 inches thick. I'm going to take it over here to the drill press. I'm going to drill a 3.5 inch hole, clearance hole here for my chuck jaws to set against to get down through that bark. And then I'm going to drill a 5/16 inch hole right in the middle for my woodworm screw. We're going to get it mounted up on the lathe and we're going to get to turning. Stand by. I have it mounted up on the woodworm screw with tailstock support. We're going to be turning at 600 RPM with my 5/8 inch standard grind bowl gouge, mask and face shield on. Now I'm going to shift and start working on this corner. I need to decide on a shape here pretty soon. I just love oak. It's just it's consistent. I don't know how else to describe it. It does what you expect it to do consistently. Well, what kind of shape are we going to have here? I want to bring these sides up. I don't want bark coming clear down here, so I need to come in this way a little sooner on this corner. This one's a little bit higher, you can see, and this one's way down here at the bottom. So I want to bring those up about halfway up the side of the bowl, and I still have 2 good flat spots on each end, and we'll be getting rid of those. But what's our shape? I don't know. Well, I guess I don't know what shape because it's just too early to tell yet. I'll just keep working away at this corner and the sides, bringing this bark up a little higher. Okay, got rid of the flat spots. I'm gonna go to work on the bottom here, create a tenon, create a base for it to set on. I think I'll leave this as kind of a design element, I guess. Now turning at 1400 RPM. Mark out for a tenon while we're here. Give us something to work up to. Now I'm going to switch to a diamond point tool to square up the sides of this tenon. Okay, and that's good. We'll go back to the side profile here. I like it. Time for sanding. I'm starting the sanding in reverse at 350 RPM. I'm using 80 grit. I'll work up through at least 400 grit. And I'll bring you back when it's time to put some finish on here, or sanding sealer, or whatever it is we decide to go with. See you in a bit. Well, I stopped at 400 grit, and I did that because, well, it's super smooth, but the main reason was I still want to feel some of the open grain of this oak, and I can barely still feel it. So 400 is plenty good, and I think it's going to look really nice. Oh, I'm applying sanding sealer, shellac-based sanding sealer, and then I'll apply shellac for a finish. And because it is open grain, I expect it to take 2 coats of sanding sealer. But it's a very nice finish I have on here after sanding. To me, there's such a thing as too smooth for some pieces. I don't always want it to feel like glass. So I'll put 2 coats of this on, and then I'll put 2 coats of shellac on. Most likely that's all I will do. And I'll bring you back when it's time to turn this around and start working on the inside. Shouldn't be much longer. Don't go anywhere. So the outside of the piece is all done. It required 2 coats of sanding sealer and 2 coats of shellac, and it's very nice. Yet you can still feel the open grain of the oak through the finish, just barely, but it doesn't feel like a piece of glass or a piece of plastic, you know, it feels like wood. And it just feels good to me. And I'll show you that in a little bit when we're done here. Now it's time to start working on the inside. I've got my 5/8 inch standard grind bowl gouge. I'm going to get my mask and face shield on. We'll be turning at 1400 RPM. I'm not sure how thick of a wall we want. It's nice bark, so I don't want it to all go away. That might be about right. That's about 3/8, maybe a little bit thicker than it should be. I might take it down to 1/4, but we'll work with this for now, see how it looks. I'm going to move in a little bit tighter here. I still think we might be just a little thick, so I am going to thin these sides down about 1/8 of an inch or so. Okay, we got a good even wall thickness, about 1/4 inch, and we're about 5/8 of an inch in the bottom, so we need to take more off down there. I like the dark grain that's showing up at the bottom. Ooh-wee baby. Very nice. Very nice. All right. Yep. We are ready for sanding. For those of you that watch my videos on a regular basis, you've seen me use this Sandoflex. Generally I use it on the bark. That's about the only place I use it. But in case you don't have one of these, and who does, they're hard to come by, although they are available. I accidentally discovered that a brass bristle brush like this works really well. I was using this to get rid of some of the moss that's in here. If you remember, this was just covered in moss. That would probably work just fine if you don't have a Sandoflex. I think that would clean the bark up. Being brass, it's just going to smooth it. It's not going to alter how the bark looks. However, I do have a Sandoflex, and I am going to use it. And I'll get my mask on and I'll show you how that's going to work. And after I use that on the bark, then I'll switch over to my 2-inch sanding disc. I'm going to start with 80 grit, even though I got a pretty good finish in here. I want to make sure that I didn't miss anything. So I'm going to start with 80 grit, and I'll show you how that works, again, right after I get my mask on. Lathe is spinning at 350 RPM. So that's going to go really easily. I will get this sanded up and I'll bring you back when it's time to put on the first coat of sanding sealer. See you in a bit. Well, the sanding went better than I could have ever hoped for. I've put a little sanding sealer in this little can, and I've got this acid brush. And I'm just going to use that on the bark. And I want to be careful that I don't go over the outside. I don't want any runs out there on my nicely finished exterior of the bowl. It's going to look really nice. Such a beautiful piece of wood. Thanks, Gary. This was an exceptional piece of oak. So I won't make you watch this. It's a little tedious. I will continue on and get 2 coats of sanding sealer on, just like I did the outside. And then 2 coats of shellac, and I apply it exactly like I do the sanding sealer. No difference whatsoever. I use a rag, I'll use the brush. It looks exactly the same, you're not missing anything. And I'll bring you back when those 4 coats are put on, assuming it takes 4 coats, just like the outside. And we'll take that tenon off. The time has come to remove that tenon. There's the inside of the bowl all finished up, looks pretty nice on the outside. I'm just mounted a block of wood up in my chuck. I'm just going to place the bowl over that and bring up the tailstock. I still have my center hole there for reference, but I still need to jiggle it around just a little bit and make sure that it's centered on that block. Then apply a little pressure. Bring up my tool rest, spin it up a little bit. Hold my thumbnail against the edge of the tenon and make sure it hits equally all the way around, and it does. Then I'm just going to grab a 3/8 inch standard grind bowl gouge. I'm going to turn the speed up to about 600 RPM, and I'm going to start removing the tenon. And I want to stop and check for clearance, and I have good clearance, and I've got a pretty smooth finish on there. So I'm going to get my tool rest just a little bit closer, just for support, and I'll just keep working that away. And that's about as far as I can get in there with the standard grind. So now I'm going to take a 3/8 inch swept back bowl gouge so I can get in a little closer. And with an open grain wood like oak, a small amount like I'm having here can get brittle and break off before I expect it to. So I'm going to turn the speed down to about 300 RPM and just keep working it away. That way at that slow of a speed. If something bad happens, I can catch it in time, hopefully. And that's pretty small right there. So now I'm going to turn it down to about 200 RPM. And I'm going to apply the bevel of the gouge against the bottom of the bowl. Right hand on the gouge, pressure towards the headstock, left hand on the switch, and when the little nub stops turning, we'll know we're through. Like that. It doesn't get any cleaner, better, easier than that. Then I'll just take this over to the workbench, sand it up, sign it, and I'll be right back. Well, there it is, one white oak natural edge bowl in the books. I do believe it's white oak, so I put white oak on the bottom. Finished up real nice. It's so nice to see that heartwood in there in the center. There's some spalting on this piece, you may have noticed as I was turning it. Just a real nice piece of oak. Nice tight bark. I love it. Thank you again, Gary, the Papa, 1947. Thank you for supplying this to us for all to enjoy. If you like this video, thumbs up please. I'd sure appreciate it. If you're a subscriber, thank you very kindly. I truly appreciate that. If you're not a subscriber, you might consider becoming one. I put out regular videos about one a week, and I'd like to keep in touch. Your comments are always welcome, and I respond to all of them. So for now, this is Phil, Shady Acres Woodshop, signing off.